Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Play on GAA podcast. In this video, me and Luke are going to have a look at our top 10 breakout stars in Gaelic football for the year of 2022. Well, with 2021 nearly now fully in the rear view mirror, attention start to turn to 2022. And Luke, we've put together our top 10 players that we expect to kind of break through in the championship in 2022. Our criteria for this list is that we expect these 10 players will go from either being not on the county panel really at all or not getting anywhere near the game time that they should be to being at the heart of their county's efforts in 2022. We know that there are a lot of young lads that are breaking through. We will give shout outs at the end of the video to the lads that we have missed. But for now, Luke, we're going to turn to number 10 on our list, and that is Conor Quinn from Tyrone. He's been a name that's been around for a few years, but mainly just because of the absolute strength in depth that Tyrone have at the back. We haven't really seen as much of Quinn as we would have liked to, but this guy is a serious talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think it's nearly more so that he's been around for a few years. He's been playing for that under 20 teams for the last 3 years for Tyrone. So he's plenty of underage experience. Everyone's very kind of familiar with him, and he's played like everywhere in that full back line. He's comfortable in the corner and in full back as well. So I'd fully expect him to get like an awful lot of league time anyway. And like I know people are probably looking at that full back line is very hard to break into, especially with kind of McKernan, McNamee and Hampsey. But look, I think by next year, he's definitely going to be the fourth option there. And if one of them were ever to move to the half-back line, he'd come in next. So I think he's going to play most of the league games, and I fully expect him to get a fair bit of championship time too. And he looks a great prospect coming through for Tyrone. It's going to further strengthen what's already a very good back line.
Without doubt. And of course, given that this is the list based off of the impact that they can have on the championship in 2022, where does Quinn's impact lie?
Yeah, look, I think, the depth of the squad is so important, I suppose. And I know we were kind of talking there. I was talking already about kind of that full back line being settled. But if, like, before I know, an injury kind of comes into that team where somebody has to get moved around, maybe Hampsey has to go back centre half back or something like that, then he's the first man in there, or anyone in the full back line picks up an injury, he comes in there. So I think it's really important that he gets that game time in the league, which I think he will. And I think just having kind of, for Tyrone going forward, they're going to need to have a big wide squad, and to have a player of that quality kind of as your next option coming on, I think could be really huge for him.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see how he does. Moving up the list then, number 9 that we've gone with is Dara Craig from Roscommon. Obviously the Craig name synonymous with Roscommon football. This is a sharpshooter up in the forwards, another ace in the pack for Roscommon potentially. This guy is a serious talent. How can he help Roscommon in 2022?
Well, yeah, I think he's exactly what they need, kind of with the fact that Cahill kind of stepped away and stuff as well. That look, they're lacking scoring forwards, and I think he was right up there with Jack Bryant is probably one of the best forward prospects in that under 20 championship last year. He was scoring for free, and he was only the second highest top scorer, just behind Jack Bryant. So he looks a bit fairly sure thing of a prospect coming forward. And in a Roscommon team that's just lacking kind of scorers, I think he goes straight in. I can see him, he's been playing centre forward a lot. I could see him going in straight in corner forward. And you look at the scoring rate last year, even in the All-Ireland final, which Roscommon came out the wrong side, he scored 8 points that game, 3 from play. So I think he's going to be absolutely starting both league and championship this year, and could be probably the main man in that forward line for Roscommon for a few years to come.
Yeah, and if he hits form, do you reckon that Roscommon could have a much, much better chance of winning the Connacht Championship? Like, is that where his impact lies?
Well, yeah, I think he's a huge first step. I think that based off that team last year, like I know they came out the wrong side that Ireland final against Offaly, but there's an awful lot of talent to that team as well. We're going to talk about Adam McDermott kind of maybe later on, but he looks a really, really good player and full forward coming through too. And I'd expect him and Craig to be the heart of that forward line for the next coming years. And look, if they develop kind of to their potential and what they've shown so far, then there's no reason to suggest that Roscommon can't be challenging for Connacht again in the next coming years.
Yeah, without doubt. So moving up the list further, now we have a midfielder from Cork. He's caught your eye during the club championship. This is Brian Hayes from Cork. Now, Cork obviously already have Ian Maguire in midfield there, but do you think Hayes is the perfect partner for him?
I do, yeah. I think that well, based off kind of the Finbars run and everything in Cork as well, he was probably their best player for Finbars throughout that whole championship. And there's a lot of talk, I think, beforehand, before the like during the last season and everything, over whether, because he was a fantastic dual player and he was playing centre half forward for the Cork under 20 hurlers, and there's a lot of talk that, look, he probably would have made the Cork senior hurling panel this year, but based on who's been called up and everything as well, it's evidence that he's not going to be a part with the hurlers next year. So he's going to be fully focusing on the football, and based off his talent levels, I'd be absolutely shocked if he's not starting. I would imagine that he'll be playing midfield beside Ian Maguire, but he can also play in the half forward line as well for the footballers, kind of linger around as a third midfielder. So I think he's a huge kind of plus for Cork football. The fact that a county where often people have kind of assumed that when given the choice that a player is going to pick hurling over it, for him to dedicate himself to the football like that is a huge boost, and I fully expect him to I think he's chosen that way because he's confident himself of getting immediate game time, and I think he could become a key player right away.
Yeah, no doubt. And with Keith Ricken coming in there as manager, he's obviously going to shake things up in the Cork camp, and I think Hayes will be a massive part of that shake-up. Yeah, so moving on then from Brian Hayes, moving further up the list, we have a name here which is very synonymous with Donegal GAA right now. But the reason that he has made our list is because, Luke, we feel that this guy, he hasn't got anywhere near the exposure that his talent deserves. I mean, you think back to that point that he kicked against Tyrone in the pouring rain to see Donegal home in treacherous conditions that day. It is, of course, Oisin Gallen. I mean, this guy, the level of talent that he has, we've seen him tearing it up in the college tournaments for years in the Sigerson Cups. But now, I mean, especially with Donegal becoming increasingly reliant on Paddy McBurty as the years goes on, I think Gallen's time surely has to come in 2022 where he steps up and is a huge player for Donegal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people are kind of surprised by the lack of game time he's got. I think maybe it's due to the fact that you're looking at a full forward line with kind of James Brennan, Paddy McBurty, and Michael Murphy in there. So it's a kind of crowded room to get into. But based off talent, I think he'd be starting nearly for any other team in the country right now, which is just kind of sums up where the Donegal full forward line's at. They're kind of missing players everywhere else, I'd say, but just to have him there he's an unbelievable prospect. He's done it at county level as well. He's been exposed to league time as well, but I suppose he kind of fits into our category here because he hasn't really got that championship start yet, which is really, really surprising considering he's been around for about 2 or 3 years. So I'd fully expect him to be a player that will be starting every single game this year, and it'd be really interesting to see if he can kind of deliver on that promise that he's shown.
Yeah, without doubt. I can't wait to see him. I mean, I've loved watching him play every game that he's played for Donegal. I mean, the guy is just a ball of energy, and the talent that he has is outrageous. And moving on then up the list to another forward with outrageous talent is Tarmac Culhan. I mean, the guy was the key man for Galway in their under-20 triumph over Dublin in 2020. The guy kicked pretty much everything for that Galway side. And of course, then he gets his senior crack in 2021. Galway's championship was over really before it began. One game in and done. Huge talent. And in a Galway forward line, which is increasingly more reliant on Shane Walsh. I mean, you saw when Shane Walsh picked up a bit of an injury there last year that it really hampered Galway. I think Culhan growing into his full potential is absolutely crucial for Galway in 2022.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, he's got that experience where in that All-Ireland final, would be 2 years ago now nearly, that he was so crucial, that team. He had another year under 20s last year to further kind of develop physically, get stronger and everything as well. And look, he's absolutely what Galway need right now. And that I wouldn't be surprised to see a fair few players from that under 20 All-Ireland winning team kind of burst their way through. I think Jack Lynch, Sean Fitzgerald, I think they could all be starting nearly before by championship this year, I think. So yeah, Culhan's probably the most exciting of the lot. I think, like, his scoring rate, you can't argue with it, and especially look in that All Ireland final, I think was when he made his name mostly as it, because he was absolutely superb that day against Dublin, and he nearly dragged them over the line himself. So yeah, I think he's going to be an absolute guarantee to be starting probably in full forward, I'd say, for Galway this year.
Yeah, without doubt, it'll be fascinating to see. And another name then moving further up the list who was playing in that under 20 final, but he was on the opposite side. He's a minor football all-star and an under 20 football all-star. Now he's fully expected to break into the senior team in 2022. It's Lee Gannon of Whitehall Columkills in Dublin. I mean, the talent that this guy has is absolutely ridiculous. His performance in that final from wing-back was fantastic. He could be exactly what Dublin need. I mean, you're looking at the retirements of the likes of Philly McMahon. You've got Mick Fitzsimons not getting any younger. Keane O'Sullivan's retired as well. Lee Gannon could be the injection of youth into that defence that Dublin so crucially need, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And I think the key kind of thing to note here is that there's a spot in that full back line, that beside Mike Fitzsimons, David Byrne, I think the left cornerback spot is completely up for grabs for Dublin this year. And look, I don't think there's a better kind of man marking defender in the county rather than Lee Gannon right now. So I think it's the kind of, he's had his year in the panel last year to develop, and he's got the year of training, kind of he's been coached the way that the management setup want to do. And I would, based off what you hear from the A versus B games and everything as well, I'd be really shocked if he's not starting cornerback for Dublin this year. And I think he's got the potential to be an absolute key player in that defence for like the next 10 years or so if he wants, because like, again, another player that could have committed to the hurling. He's been a dual star the whole way as well, but fortunately for the footballers, he's gonna stick that way, I think. And he's definitely one to watch out in the league. He'll be coming back from playing Sigerson as well, so might miss the first round or two, but I would fully expect him to be, by the end of the league, mainstay in that Dublin defence.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to see just how he does. Now that takes us into the top four, and one of the, well, you could argue one of the most watched players in Gaelic football in 2022 will be Offaly's Jack Bryant, under 20 footballer of the year. Luke, how do you even start describing this guy's talents?
Yeah, look, I think it was an absolutely huge story. I think last year was that Offaly run to the All Ireland final and ultimately winning it. And look, I think he was absolutely essential in it. He was the top scorer. His tallies in those games were just incredible, really, especially kind of the All Ireland final too. So he's gone like to absolute kind of superstar levels. I think he's like widely recognised everywhere, and he's probably the face of that Offaly team. But like I would say as well, I would expect a few of that Offaly team to probably break through alongside him as well. I think Ed Cullen in midfield looks a really, really good prospect as well. And I'd expect him to probably get a fair bit of game time too for Offaly. Like Cormac Egan was probably the really good player on that under 20 team as well, but I think he's another year 20s this year, so I think he might be the version to break into it next year. So it's really exciting times for Offaly, and I would fully expect Jack Bryant to kind of that figure replacing Niall McNamee as the main forward for Offaly for the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I feel like this year might be a real passing of the torch moment for Offaly GAA, which takes us into our top three. And I mean, our pick for number three is not a lot of people's pick as a breakout young star, but this guy definitely could have a huge impact on the championship because of the position that he is in. Dylan Casey from Kerry. I mean, he's been superb for Austin Stacks throughout the entire club championship. He's been a mainstay, a rock at the heart of that Austin Stacks defence. And when you're thinking about what has held Kerry back from All Ireland glory over the last couple of years, you would think about that defence. And Dylan Casey from Austin Stacks, could he be the answer?
Yeah, look, I think so. And I think that's why he's probably so high up, is that if you go and watch back the game against Tyrone last year, take away kind of the goals and the leaky defence for the goals, Kerry probably win that game. And once again, I suppose it's a player running straight through the middle of their defence that's been the problem here. And I think Dylan Casey has been very good player at underage for Kerry in recent years, played full back, knows position really well. And that Austin Stacks defence kind of that he's the main man for has been so good. They've been conceding only about average of 9 points in the championship so far. So I think he's could be essential to be playing fullback this year, and I would be absolutely shocked if he's not playing fullback for Kerry this year, because I think he's kind of the first step towards solidifying that defence. And once they solidify that, I think their fortunes start to change based on who they have up the other end of the field.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt his impact on the championship could be absolutely huge if he plugs that gap in the Kerry defence. Moving on then to our number two, and it is Stephen Sherlock from Cork. Again, similar to Oisin Gallen, Sherlock has been on the block for a few years, but for some reason, Ronan McCarthy never seemed to give him a fair crack at the whip for the Cork seniors. His scoring exploits for St. Finbarrs in the club championship have just been crazy. And surely he will become Cork's kind of main scoring threat under Keith Ricken in 2022. The talent that this guy has can't be ignored anymore, Luke.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you talked about there already that the tallies he's consistently putting up for Finbars is pretty sensational. So I think, look, he never kind of really got that sustained run with Cork. I don't know, based in the kind of McCarthy squads, if he just wasn't kind of fancied when he was called up to it and stuff. But yeah, I would be really surprised if he's not starting corner forward for Keith Ricken's Cork. Like, there's plenty of talent in that Cork team coming through. You could nearly have him, Cathal O'Mahony, Demi Gore, all these players fighting it out for that corner forward spot. And you've got even other players like Conor Corbett as well coming through too. So there's going to be so much competition for that Cork full forward line. But I think Sherlock has been the most impressive at club level. So really interesting, because I think he's widely expected from most kind of people that he will be getting a lot of game time, especially as soon as he's available, based off when Finbars kind of leave the All-Ireland club run, whether they win or whether they're knocked out. Yeah, so I think he'll be a big one to look out for. And yeah, I would be very, very surprised if he's not a starter for Cork this year.
Yeah, me too. I mean, the form that he's had has just been outrageous throughout the club championship, as I mentioned before. And I think, yeah, his time has come. Just before we move on to our number one pick for the guy who could have the biggest impact on the championship in 2022, it's time for some shout outs. Adam McDermott from Roscommon is another supreme forward who could have an impact on their push for the Connacht Championship. Aidan Orme from Mayo came on in the All-Ireland final last year. He's a very, very talented young player. Keane McConville is the son of Oisin McConville, Armagh legend, and McConville is showing some serious talent. He could be a huge player for Armagh in 2022. Kieran Archer was one of the young stars that was known around the country. He's kind of taken a year longer than a lot of people have expected to get into the senior side, but his breakthrough could come in 2022. I mean, remember the tallies that he was putting up in the under-20 championship. Jack Carney is a supreme midfield talent from Mayo who could get into the side, especially when you consider that they need a partner for Matthew Ruan in there. Paul O'Shea from Kerry is a very exciting forward, lots of pace and lots of scoring ability. Sean Jones from Monaghan could get into the side, especially as Conor McManus's retirement looms ever closer. Sean O'Connor then is a scoring forward from Tipperary who tore the under-20 championship apart. He could be a huge player for Tipperary, especially as players like Michael Quinlivan might go travelling again. Sheelan Johnston from Down also has been a supreme player for Kilcoo throughout the club championship, and he could have a big impact on the championship in 2022. But our pick for number one of players who could have a huge impact on the championship in 2022, who weren't really around in 2021, is Stefan Okunbor from Kerry. He's come back from the AFL. As you mentioned, Luke, Kerry's defence was their Achilles heel, but with Okunbor and Casey, could they be All-Ireland champions in 2022?
Yeah, look, it'll be an interesting one to see what happens there, because based off, I've already talked about that Tyrone game where Kerry were just exploited with runners right through the centre of that defence. And we could be looking at a situation next year where you've Dylan Casey fullback and Stefan Okunbor centre halfback. So, yeah, I can't see a way in which, based off his club form and how well he's been performing in Kerry as well for the last couple of weeks, I can't see a way in which Okunbor is not starting for Kerry. There's a lot of talk that he's going to play probably midfield for UL and the Sigerson, but so that's another option there as well. It's yet to see kind of how it's going to transpire. At club level, I think he's been playing most around that half back line, so I fully expect to see him around centre half back, and yeah, just like a player kind of his stature and like the skill levels that he's previously shown as well. I think he could be absolutely huge for Kerry, and yeah, I think if they play him centre half back, like I'd like to see teams being able to run through him. You get through him first, and you Dylan Casey behind. I think it's a huge step for Kerry, and maybe it might be perfect year one, but I think if they go with that route for the next couple of years with that spine of their defence, I don't think it'll be long. There'll be long waiting on that All Ireland to finally come.
Yeah, it'd be fascinating to see if Jack O'Connor can mould all those young talents into a supreme Kerry side once again. He's done it before. Can he do it in 2022 in another term in charge of the Kerry footballers? So, guys, that is the Play On GAA's list of the 10 breakout stars to watch in Gaelic football in 2022. Obviously, there are so many talents that could come out in Gaelic football in 2022. So, Do you agree with our list? Who would you have put at top of the list? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe and to check out all our other videos. We're going to do a hurling version of this. And until the next video, guys, take care.